chapter 9, and of course, we'll be also in Nehemiah chapter 2. So that's 2 Peter 3, Daniel 9, and Nehemiah chapter 2. So there is obviously lots of things that we need to be praying about around here, without any question. A lot of people are out because of various illnesses and sicknesses and things to that matter. Surgeries, there's a lot. So just be praying about all that. Be praying for your brothers and sisters that they would heal up and be able to get back to church and be amongst the brethren as soon as they can. And certainly that we would be a service to them in this time as well. That's obviously a good thing. Want to just say, number one, thank you for anybody who has been a part of the different ministries that we do around here. We have a lot of things. We obviously do that on purpose, but I want to thank you all for being involved in those things. At the end of the day, ministry can't be ministry without people. So thank you guys for that. I want to thank my wife for putting up with me for 18 years today. So yes, we are celebrating our 18th anniversary today. It was 18 years ago that we stood before Pastor Grace and got married. I'm thankful for that. There's no doubt about it. I didn't know the day we were standing in front of Pastor Grace what he had in store for us. But boy, I don't know that he could have not picked a more perfect person. So I appreciate you. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful, honestly, for all the things I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that he gave you a job where me and you can kind of know how each other thinks and feels about things and talk about those things together. And I think that's very helpful to me. You've been obviously a very big help to me. And sorry that you have to put up with me, but you do. So that's the way it works. So you just do. And, that's just the way that it goes. Okay. So this morning, I was thinking about this all week, about how I wanted to do this. Do I want to just go right into Nehemiah 3 and we could just continue plowing through Nehemiah, which certainly we could have done. But man, here's the thing. What we're going to be talking about this morning is probably what amps me up. I love this subject, and I think it's important enough that we shouldn't just overlook it. We should take a look at it. Certainly most of you around here have been around where I've talked about this passage of Daniel 9 before, but then some of you haven't. It's always a good reminder to remember these things because they are important. I'm going to try to do this in such a way that I keep it as simple as I can, but at the same time, we are going to be looking at the Bible. So, there is going to be a measure of, you got to put your thinking cap on for a minute and really tune in. Here's the thing. The ignorance of Bible prophecy and the fearful pastors in these last days who are avoiding it because for whatever reasons, lots of times the reasons why someone might avoid prophecy in the Bible is because they think that it would be too controversial in their church or amongst other churches. But I would say that the issue with that is it's a great issue. It's a problem. All that pastor will ever be is a spiritual motivational speaker instead of a biblically sound pastor. And I'm going to explain to you why that is true here in a moment. This is the number one reason, in my humble opinion, of why we are where we are in the church today. So many pivotal doctrinal truths have been lost to the church while we are motivational speaking and practical teaching as if it's the most important. Now, I'm not saying that practical teaching doesn't have a place in our studies and in our sermons. However, we have to emphasize what God emphasizes. And I can promise you this, he emphasizes prophetical teaching, doctrinal teaching, far more than he emphasizes practical teaching in the Bible. There's no question about that if you really pay attention, what's going on. The issue with this, if we go about this way, just paying attention to motivational speaking or putting the emphasis, if I can say that, on practical preaching, is that you will teach the motivational practical teachings wrong. See, if you don't understand the proper doctrines correctly, then you can motivationally and practically teach all you want. But if you're not motivationally and practically teaching correct Bible stuff, then the motivational practical teaching is no longer going to have any major effect on the people. Okay? And so there is why I would say it's an issue. It is. I cannot overemphasize the importance of understanding this. The devil has had his way. Motivational and practical teaching. Let's really concentrate about this and really think about this for a second. Who does it concentrate on? Who does it put the emphasis on? If I'm motivating, who? If I'm practical teaching, who does that put the emphasis on? Self. And again, I don't want to say that that is necessarily wrong. What I do want to say, though, is if that's all we ever do, well, what's going to happen over time is now that's going to be more important than God's doctrines. And listen, that is where we are. That is where we are. Laodicea is alive and well. There was a qualitative study that was done. So a qualitative study is doing a bunch of different stuff and doing a study over, trying to answer a question, and then you do a study, qualitative, how many, okay? And they did a study of over 450 sermons that was done in the church in a 2-year period of time within the last year. So this is very relevant information I'm about to tell you. Only 2% were done on prophetical passages of the Bible. That means of the 450 sermons that were done, if I remember correctly, they did it over a course of 30 different pastors and listened to, not just one sermon, but 3 or 4 of their sermons. I can't remember exactly how many it was. But if my math is correct, that means somewhere around 9 sermons out of 450 were based on prophetical passages. I don't know what that was, but it sounded like me, and it was cool. All right, anyways. So listen, in my humble opinion, this is a catastrophic issue. The culmination of prophetical events make up almost half of our Bible. And to get only 2% of sermons focusing on anything prophetical is leaving out half of our Bible. What this is proving is that churches are intentionally marginalizing the topic. And the issue is, if you do this, you are ignoring almost half your Bible. And does anybody beside myself think that's a problem? Because I think that is. And what it is teaching then is and how we're going about this is well, not all of Scripture really is that important. Every word of God really isn't pure. It's only the ones we want to focus on that are pure. And by the way, the ones that we focus on that we call pure, well, they're really not pure because we're missing out on the other half of the Bible that helps us put that in its prophetic place or in its doctrinal place. So now even what we're preaching isn't pure because it's not right. It's doctrinally incorrect. This is what's happening in many of a pulpit this morning. And I know that people will get upset at me about that, and they'll go, well, that's just your opinion and all that great stuff. I'm just telling you, it is not my opinion. The Bible said this was going to happen. We're not enduring sound doctrine because we're too busy itching people's ears. And that's what you're doing when you go about just motivational picking yourself up kind of sermons. Listen, they have their place, and there's times and places for it. But if it is outside of the boundaries of doctrinal truth, well, then what are we really doing? Whose church is it really at that point? We've made it our church. And we've created a church, we've created a Jesus that is not biblically sound. Many, many folks are going down that path. And so listen, we wonder why people are confused, or probably just as relevant, ignorant of true biblical doctrine. And what I would say is, although we all will have to speak for self, we all will, but the primary, in my humble opinion, the primary person who is responsible for that direct assault is the pastor. Because if the pastor's not doing what the Bible told him to do, whose fault is it? God has called pastors to be what? Jeremiah 3:15. What does he call pastors to do? I will give you pastors according to my heart that will teach you knowledge and understanding of what? Just the passages I think are important? No. Paul says, I have not shunned to give you what? The whole counsel of God. The whole counsel of God includes 50% of it, which is prophetic in nature. Y'all understand what I'm saying? So listen, here's the reality. Okay, and let's kind of dial in for a second and really just understand why this is so important. Ready? The king is coming. The king is coming. He has prepared a place for us. And if we lack the importance of understanding these two very key events in our very near future, we will not live like we should. And we're losing it. People do not understand the reality of what's coming. Here's the thing, and I'm going to get into this a little later in the message. Here's the thing that I think has happened, okay? We have spent so much time talking about when he's going to come that we have forgotten why he is going to come. And when you forget the why, it doesn't matter when he's going to come. Because the when he's going to come, you can sit there and you can play that all you want, but if you aren't prepared for his coming, it ain't going to matter.
Right.
This is why I think most churches are doing their people a major disservice. A major disservice, because we're not preparing them for the fact that the king is coming. And we're not preparing them for the fact of what he's going to do when he comes. People are ignorant to it. People don't know. And because of that, we have become apathetic. And we will live for self rather than in preparation for his return. And in doing so, while he's up there preparing a place for us, we're down here not preparing a place for him. You understand what I'm saying? So, I know we're talking about prophecy, and you're probably sitting there going, what does this have to do with anything? It has everything to do with everything. Prophecy is what God uses to institute this motivation to get us ready. And if we're ignoring it or sweeping it off to the side and just using it as a secondary every now and then, we're going to be an apathetic church. And we're just going to keep, motivate me for a minute, because we all know that once we get motivated, we all walk out the door and we lose that in about an hour. And nobody really, I'm not saying that it's happening in here. I'm just saying, as a church as a whole, this is what's happening. It's because we've lost the very thing that God uses to be the key motivator. How have we come to a place that talking about the return of Jesus has become a downer to people? Our younger generation, and I remember when I was teaching back in EVA, and I remember, obviously I was hitting on some of these prophetical things, and I think that's what was hitting y'all up, and it was like, whoa, nobody ever taught this before. Well, this is crazy stuff, right? Okay, listen, and that's all cool, but I remember a lot of the students would come up to me and be like, well, listen, I want to get married. I want to have kids. I want to do all that, right? Why? Why are we thinking that way? Because what we've preached and taught everybody is it's all about you. So, hey, I want to get married. I want to have kids. Don't you understand that when you're with him, you're going to do that fivefold, tenfold? That was his original design. We're losing it, man. We're not teaching people properly. And people are not, how can it become a downer that Jesus is coming? How can that become an event that we're not constantly preparing for? I believe that the reason why that is, the reason why people who name the name of Christ, not knowing the purpose of his coming, not knowing the manner of his coming, and how we are to be prepared for it, maybe even worse, how people that are name the name of Christ even doubt he's coming. Listen, the majority of the Christian church today doubts it. Hopefully nobody in this room doubts it, but the statistics say most people doubt it. It's very sad. The devil has pulled off such a ruse that he has blinded our eyes, just like the Bible said he would. You cannot remove prophecy from the Bible without removing who the true Jesus is. That is a absolutely emphatic statement I will stand on all day long. Without any question, no reserve, absolutely. You cannot have the whole counsel of God and remove any of it. Every word, or you're in trouble. And we are told by Peter that we have a more sure word of prophecy today than they had back then. And we need to understand what prophecy actually is designed to do biblically, number one, and then what it does and how it should flow through us and why it's so important. I would say this, okay, the world is forgetting why biblical prophecy is so important. It's forgetting why. And you go, well, what do you mean they're forgetting why? Well, let me throw this at you. What's the very thing that proves that the Bible is a divine source? Because if this is not a divine source, then all it is just another religious book like all the rest. See, we have taught people that this isn't really God's word. This is just, the phrases, as long as it's in there. The problem with that is, if every word of God is not pure, then what do we have to prove that this actually came from him? And if we don't have that, if we remove that, if you remove prophecy, then the Bible would be no more relevant and be just as equal as any other holy book. This is why this generation doesn't want anything to do with the church. They're not being taught that there is any real tangible evidence to prove what we're saying from the pulpit is right. I'm not going to believe what the Bible teaches about things like sin or homosexuality or abortion or all the big subjects that are hot points today. I'm not going to believe any of that. I'm not going to believe what this book has to say anyways if all I think is just another religious book like the rest. That's all I think it is. What we've lost its supernatural power. It's just another book. And listen, I think the danger of that is, even in a church like this who is biblically sound, I think the danger of that is we kind of can fall under that trap too, and we can become apathetic. If it's not a supernatural book, if it doesn't have supernatural power, if we can't prove its author, well then, yeah, I can tell you exactly why we got to where we are. I can tell you exactly why we treat the church the way we do. I can tell you exactly why we view it the way we do it. But if we can prove that it has a supernatural power, well, that changes everything if you're really paying attention. And I know this from the very bottom of my heart, from the very fabric of my soul, because that's what it did for me. and you'll never convince me otherwise. It changed me completely. What did not change me is because somebody came up and told me that Jesus died for my sins. I'm not saying that's not important. Don't misread what I just said. What I'm saying is in the day that we live in now, most people have at least have some proportion where they heard that. The problem is they don't believe it. Well, that Jesus guy, I was one of them. I didn't even believe Jesus was a real person. What puts the stamp? What says, hey, you better believe what Jesus said about this? What puts a stamp on it? Prophecy does. Prophecy does. It will change everything. Only one thing that can happen from the world forgetting how important biblical prophecy is: a falling away and a disbelief in him returning. And I know this because Peter tells us this. Go to 2 Peter for me. I told you I wanted you there. 2 Peter, chapter number 2. And let's take a look at what Peter says. Chapter 3, chapter 3. 2 Peter 3. Now watch, starting in verse 1. This second epistle, beloved, I now write unto you, in both which I stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance, that you may be mindful of the words which were spoken before by the holy prophets, and of the commandment of us, the apostles of the Lord and Savior. Knowing this first, there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. For this they are willingly ignorant of that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. How many people understand actually what took place between Genesis 1 and 1 and 2? How many? I just had a conversation with some folks about this. Completely clueless to it. And what I don't understand is why you wouldn't think that's important. Peter's telling us right here. By thinking that something like that is not important, we are willingly ignorant. Not just that we are ignorant, we're willingly ignorant of it. But the heavens and the earth, which are now, by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. Okay, so listen now. There is going to be a day coming where the earth that we are now in right now is going to witness a day of judgment where fire is going to come down and destroy everything. And you know who's going to send that fire? Well, Jesus just loves us all. He's just a peaceful guy. He ain't going to do none of that. I mean, man, Jesus, hey, it's okay. Grace covers all. You just keep living your best life you can. And listen, when you do something a little wrong, just go to Jesus and he'll take care of it. As if Jesus is okay with the sins that we're doing. That's what we're teaching people. It is wrong. It is absolutely wrong. Jesus is the righteous judge. And for him to bring down righteousness, he hates sin. Not just some of it. Not just the ones we pick and choose. All of it. Now, certainly, God is a God of grace. He sent his Son to take on the wrath that we deserved. That's what he did. We've got to get to the place where we realize and understand who the real Jesus is. He is not okay with sin. He will never be okay with sin. And he will never think that any of it is good. He's going to come to destroy it. He already destroyed it physically on the cross. He's going to come and destroy the rest spiritually at the second death. That's what's going to happen. We're not teaching people this. We're not telling people this. People don't know this. It's become irrelevant in our churches today. How can I, and don't take this meaning Jacksonville, Florida, or here, I could go anywhere, and probably this would be true. But how can I come to the Bible Belt of the southern states who claims to be the Bible Belt and people not know this? How do you not know? Well, the reason why you probably don't know is twofold. One, because you go to church for who? So you're going to go find a church that fits you and what you want and what you're looking for and all the things that matter to you, as if that's important. I promise you it's not. I'll promise you it is not. The most important thing when it comes to the church is to find a church who is willing to tell you the truth. And then you need to do something with it. You have a choice now. That's the most important thing. It's not the color of the carpet or the big, huge children's ministry or the music that's being played or the pastor makes me laugh or the pastor, he always is getting on us, that guy. I don't know about that. None of that matters. None of it does. God is not going to care an ounce about any of that. What God's going to care about, what the judge is going to care about at the judgment seat of Christ, if you're so lucky to be there by His grace because you accepted Him, what He's going to care about at that, or i.e. the great white judgment, if you're not so lucky, what He's going to care about is, what did you do with my word? That's what He's going to care about. Well, man, Pastor Frank, he was just too hard. Yeah, but he was right. He was preaching my word. Yeah, but man, he just didn't make me feel good about things, and man, he was just hammering on us on this, and man, I don't, and that church, man, those people. What does any of that have to do with anything? Because the last time I checked, Galatians tells us what? Each person's going to what? Anybody? Each person is going to be held accountable to who? Themselves. God's not going to look and go, yeah, I get it. Man, that Wendy, she was a real terror in the church. I get why you didn't want to go to One Baptist Church. I understand. God ain't going to care an ounce about that. What He's going to say is, why are you looking at people? I told you in Ephesians 4. I told you in Romans 12. I told you people are people. This is why we need to learn to function with one another. God doesn't care about someone's personality. God doesn't care about how. God only cares that truth is being told. And if truth is being told, what are you going to do with it? That's all God cares about. I promise you, you couldn't find me a verse in the Bible that says otherwise. That's what He cares about. Now, He certainly wants us to be transformed into the image of His Son. And He certainly wants us to be graceful to one another and forgiving to one another and all those things. No doubt about that. But at the end of the day, that is going to change nothing if you do nothing with it. And that's where we are today. That's why we got to where we are. But here's the reality. Facts are a stubborn thing. And everything that is happening in our world today is happening exactly 100% according to Bible prophecy. And most have no clue about it. And the evidence is overwhelming. Hundreds of biblical prophecies are being played out as we speak. As we move core evangelical beliefs, the ideas of sin, the cost of sin, death, the penalty of sin, which is separation in a place called hell, and that the only cure is Jesus Christ. And as we remove the blood, which is the only remedy, hell is widening open by the minute. Today, 85% of Americans do not believe that the Bible is the only complete revelation of God. 85% of Americans do not believe that. They do not believe that it is the complete Word of God, compared to 25% in the 60s. That's a pretty big jump to me. I don't know about anybody else. The belief of the validity of the Bible is being systematically erased. So how are we not surprised? With each passing year, other religions are being put on equal ground with the Bible. And without substance, a global trend has moved toward humanism and is taking place, and it is exploding. Almost half of Americans today do not identify with any religious affinity. Almost half, compared to less than 10% in the 60s. You know, it's an amazing thing, but if you ever heard of A.W. Tozer, he predicted all this was going to happen. Not like A.W. Tozer is just a prophet. He just knew what the Bible said. And this is the guy who wrote in the 50s, man. You should go read some of his books. He nailed it. He knew exactly where the problem was. And the very first problem that he nailed was, we have taken the cross and we have allowed the cross to be an entertainment piece now instead of a place of death. And we all are falling into it. We're all getting that idea. The cross is death. It's not entertainment. The church is not for you to entertain you. It's not for me. We're losing the very substance that God has used in His book to promote His validity. What's interesting to me is almost half of Americans do not identify with any religious affinity, but yet, and they don't believe the validity of the Bible, but yet that same number, almost 85% of the world believes today that the world will end in their lifetime. And I asked the question, why? And because here's the reality of it. Facts are a stubborn thing. And even ignorance cannot ignore them fully. That's the truth of it. This was all prophesied. Sadly, few believe He will return. The question Jesus asked was, when He does, will He find faith on the earth? And the resounding answer is, if we're paying attention, no, He won't. It is problematic enough that faith is not found in the secular world. But the reality is, it is the true biblical sound faith is not found within the Christian world either. This westernized, man-made version of Christianity is failing in its faith. It is no longer making a difference in our society. No one is being taught to be ready. No one is being taught to be busy. No one is taught the urgency of what's coming. And the slow fade has led to indifference and stagnant people who name Christ as Savior, but are either clueless or just don't care what it means to be a Christian. And those are tough, hard words, but it's the truth. Evidence is shown in our society. It's not just me saying that, it's the reality of it. The real question that must be asked is, with all this happening, which Bible are you reading? Which Jesus are you talking about? Which gospel are you hearing? Which spirit are you receiving? The mystery of iniquity, just as Paul told us, is already at work. And unless we learn to try the spirits, we will be deceived just like the rest of the world is. You understand? And take note, it's only going to get exponentially worse. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. This is why Scripture says Jesus will return like a thief in the night. What does that mean? People are unprepared for the one that's coming. That's what it's saying. Either you'll choose to take this seriously or you will not. This brings us to this passage in Nehemiah chapter 2 that has profound significance. So let's give a little background on what's going on here. Pastor Robert did a great job last week kind of walking us through the passage and looking at it from a point of how Nehemiah reacted into a situation of leadership and what he was put in. So what I want to do today, obviously, as I just kind of laid out for you, I want to give you the other significance of the passage, which is it has very serious prophetic implications. Okay? Daniel the prophet has been in captivity to the Babylonian Empire for 70 years. The kingdom of Babylon, which had taken the kingdom of Israel into captivity, in 606 BC, had fallen to the Medo-Persian Empire in 536 BC under Cyrus. And Darius was made the king over the realm of the Chaldeans. Chaldeans is just another word for Babylonians. He understood, Daniel did, and get yourself to Daniel chapter 9 now. And look at verse number 1 here. It says, in the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of years, wherefore the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. So Daniel understands that this captivity that Israel was to experience was going to last for 70 years. So what passage is he referring to? It's Jeremiah 25, verses 11 and 12, where it says, Jeremiah says, and this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. And it shall come to pass, when 70 years are accomplished, that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, saith the Lord, for their iniquity, and the land of the Chaldeans, and will make it perpetual desolations. So, where Daniel messed up, if I can say it that way, is he took that to say that Israel now was going to regain its sovereignty and become a nation again. That's what he's thinking. But that's not what it said. What it said is that God was going to judge the nation of Babylon, which he did. Okay? Now, what happens in other prophetic things of Daniel, and this is not the scope of this study, but just to understand, in other prophetic things of Daniel, God does describe what's going to happen after Babylon. Media Persia, Greece, Rome, and so forth. Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7. Y'all got me? Okay? But that's not the scope of this study. I want to pay attention to what's going on here. Knowing that the time, he believed, that the time of the captivity of Israel to Babylon is now over, not recognizing at this point that, well, we're just now going to fall under the captivity of Medo-Persia, okay? He doesn't recognize that. But Daniel begins to make petitions before God, confessing the sins of Israel and presenting supplications. So that's the rest of this, or the majority of this chapter. Now, what I want you to understand is, okay, and this is where I told you, you're going to have to put your thinking cap on and stay with me for a little bit on some of this stuff, okay? But I think it's that important, all right? And I think it's worth it in the end to understand. So many, unfortunately, will take a passage like this, and if they even know that it's in the Bible, because most people don't, but even if they do, they will misrepresent what's going on here and teach it wrong. I want you to grab onto some things as I go through this, and I'm going to make an emphatic point about something that by the time we're done with the first 23 verses, I'm not going to read all of them, I'm just going to read some of them, you're going to go, well, obviously, come on. Well, the obviously, come on, is not so obvious to a lot of people, which blows my mind. But now watch. Look at verse 2. And it says that how the prophet Jeremiah, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. Right? Is that what that says? Verse 4. And I prayed unto the Lord my God and made my confession and said, O Lord, the great and dreadful God, keeping the covenant and mercy to them that love him and to them that keep his commandments. We, okay, who's the we? Okay, he just said Jerusalem. So we have sinned and committed iniquity and have done wickedly and have rebelled, even by departing from thy precepts and from thy judgments. Neither have we, who's the we, okay, hearkened unto thy servants and prophets, which spake in thy name to our kings, our princes, and our fathers, and to all the people of the land. Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto, who's the us? Okay? Confusion of faces. Now, just in case you didn't know that it was Jerusalem, for some reason you lost it, watch. At this day to the men of, okay, so we know that's what he's talking about, in case some reason we lost it. And the inhabitants of, and unto all of, that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven them, because of their trespasses that they have trespassed against thee. Drop down to verse 9. To the Lord our God belongeth mercy and forgiveness, though, who's the we? Okay, have rebelled against him. Neither have, who's the we? I'm sorry, I want to make the point. Obeyed the voice of the Lord our God to walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants, the prophets, yea, all, there we go, emphatically, have transgressed the law, even by departing that they might not obey the voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon, who's the us? Okay, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses. Who was the law of Moses given to? Okay, the servant of God, because who's the we? Have sinned against him. And he hath confirmed his words which he spake against us. Who's the us? How did he confirm his words? Because they're in captivity right now. Exactly what he said was going to happen if they didn't follow after his law, if they didn't follow after his judgments, they were going to fall into captivity. He confirmed it. We're in captivity, right? And against our judges that judged us by bringing upon us a great evil. For unto the whole heaven hath not been done as it hath been done upon. I got a question. Just seriously. Is there a Gentile anywhere in sight right now? Does anybody see any Gentiles in any of this conversation? Anybody? Okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't losing it. And he hath confirmed, I already read that. 13. As it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil has come upon, who's the us? Yet made, who's he, we? Not our prayer before the Lord our God, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth. Wow. Part of what was going on against Israel is because they didn't understand his truth. Okay, verse 16. O Lord, according to all thy righteousness, I beseech thee, let thy anger and thy fury be turned away. You mean God can be angry and furious at somebody? Well, man, thank the Lord. He's just angry and furious at them. He's certainly not going to be angry and furious at us. Oh, really? Really? Where did you get that idea? Oh, yes, he will. Well, I got the blood of Jesus Christ covering me. You're right, you do. But when you act like the infidel you are when you're walking in the flesh, God's not happy with that. Okay? We have an incredible ability to what? Lie to ourselves. Don't lie to yourself. No. Look at, let thy anger and thy fury be turned away from the city of thy holy mountain. Because why was he angry and furious? Because for our sins and for the iniquities of our fathers. So this is what brings about God's anger and fury. Sin and iniquity. There's something interesting we probably should pay attention to. Right? Look at verse number 17. Now therefore, O our God, hear the prayer of thy servant and his supplications, and cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary that is desolate. Now, do you want to know why he said, cause your face to shine on the sanctuary that's desolate? Because at that moment, the temple had been destroyed. It was desolate. There was no temple. The city of Jerusalem had been completely leveled by Babylon. They destroyed the temple, and they destroyed the city. So you understand now what's going on there? Okay, look at verse 19. O Lord, hear, O Lord, forgive, O Lord, hearken and defer not for thy own sake. He understood Not for our sake. We stink. We screwed up. Do it for your sake, O Lord. Oh my God, for thy city and thy people are called by thy name. And while I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplications before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God, yea, while I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, he saw him in another vision earlier in the book, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of evening oblation, and he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I have now come to give thee skill and understanding. At the beginning of thy supplication, the commandment came forth, and I came to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Do know this, there's only 2 people in the Bible that's said about. Do you know who those 2 people are? Daniel and John. And you want to know what's interesting about those 2 gentlemen? Daniel got to write the book of Daniel, and John wrote, oh boy, because you can't understand Revelation without Daniel, and you can't understand Daniel without Revelation. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's just a different story, different time, but there's no doubt about it. And he says to Daniel, therefore understand the matter and consider the vision. Israel had been under captivity to Babylon, and they're now under the power of Media-Persia. Daniel, as we have just seen, is petitioning God for the time he believes has come for Israel to be freed and once again become their own kingdom. The answer he gets defies all rational explanation and is unexplainable outside of believing and taking God at his word. God sends the angel Gabriel to reveal to Daniel the future of the nation of Israel. And what he reveals to Daniel is still applicable and precise to this very day. Wow. Didn't mess up even a little bit. Exactly what he said was going to happen, happened. And is still happening. That's pretty cool. You want some evidence of this book? Well, there you go. Do something with that, man. So what he says now, and I'm just going to, listen, for the sake of our study, we're already at 11:45. I'm not going to teach the whole passage of these next 4 verses. But I do want to pay attention to some of them because they are good. You'll get enough of it to grab onto it. Now look what it says. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. Okay, let's stop. Who is thy people emphatically? No. Was there a Gentile anywhere in this passage? No. There's no doubt about it. Thy people is Israel. What's the holy city? No doubt about it. Why anybody would teach differently is beyond the scope of my understanding. Does anybody think that's not clear as day? The church is nowhere near this passage. Anybody want to argue that? It's just not. Okay, so 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. To do what? He now lists 7 things. And there's an interesting number. He now lists 7 things. To finish the transgression. Peyton, where are you? There we go. To finish the transgression. To make an end of sin. To make reconciliation for iniquity. To bring in everlasting righteousness. To seal up the vision. To seal up the prophecy. To anoint the most holy. These, and I made a mistake there, it should be 7, major items listed in this passage is directed toward who? Who is it not directed towards? Okay? I just want to be clear about that. There's no way you could take any of this and, unless we're resting the scripture, like Peter says, and make it about anything else than the Jew and the city of Jerusalem. That's what this is all about. Good? Are we good with that? This passage, by all accounts, is probably one of the most important prophetical passages in the Bible that absolutely must be understood properly And it absolutely must be in context. I've told this before, and I've said this often. There are 3 chapters in the Bible that if you were to go to a person and say, okay, what do you think about these chapters? 3 chapters. If you sat me down with anybody, I don't care who you are, I don't care how smart you are about the Bible, I don't care how ignorant, sit me down with them, let me go to those 3 chapters, let me talk about those 3 chapters with them, let me get their answers off those 3 chapters of what they think, and I can tell you exactly what they think. I'll tell you exactly what their doctrine is. I'll tell you exactly what they believe. And you could go, well, that's pretty arrogant there, Pastor. You can't do it. Oh, no, God did that by design. Because they are the most important. Well, what are they, Pastor? What are they? They are Daniel chapter number 9. They are Revelation chapter number 11 and Revelation chapter number 12. Let's go. I'll tell you everything you need to know about what that person believes based on those 3 chapters. Now, here's the first thing. If they don't even know what I'm talking about, well, then I can almost guarantee you emphatically without any question, their doctrine's screwed up. There's something messed up in their system. Because if they don't even know those things, well, then I'll guarantee you they got major problems. Which, by the way, is probably 90% of the people. 90% of the people have no idea what this passage is about. They have no idea who the woman is in Revelation 20 or 12. They have no idea who the 2 witnesses are. They have no idea about any of that stuff. And quite honestly and quite frankly, because I can say that because I'm frank, listen, they don't even care. They don't care. However, you should care because it matters. It will help you understand the rest of your Bible, how you depict that. It is that important. No questions asked, it is that important. Remember when I told you I don't remember, when I told you that there's something that, there's 7 mysteries that we are going to be held accountable for. Remember when we talked about that? 1 Corinthians 4, 1 and 2, right? Whereby it is what? Required that a servant be found faithful. You will find what I'm talking about right now in those 7 mysteries. So there you go. There's no question about it. I'm not just saying that because I got nothing better to say. It is absolutely true. It is absolutely true. Okay? This passage is incredibly important. Rightly dividing this passage is utmost of importance. The first thing that we must understand, go ahead, Peyton, that in this passage is, as I've been saying all along, who is the focus of this passage actually on? The Jew. Who is it not on? Do you recognize how many religious organizations, I'm going to call them that we just made a very major problem for? I don't even know if you even can comprehend how many are in trouble right now. A lot. Even many Baptist churches. A lot. I would probably venture we probably just put 90% of churches in trouble. Well, Pastor, you can't talk about other churches like that. That's just not right. I'm not following other churches. I'm following the Word of God. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. And if you're wrong about one thing, emphatically you're going to be wrong about others. Yeah? Daniel is a Jew, and therefore his people are the nation of Israel, and the holy city would be Jerusalem. It has nothing to do with the Gentile world or the blood-bought church. To put either one of those in this passage is an absolute disgrace to Bible study. You're putting your presupposition into it. And that's not right. That's not proper Bible study. It's just not. Listen, it's important to understand that the number 7, the number of completeness, is what's listed in this passage. And it's important to understand, as we try to break this passage down a little bit more, that not all of them have been completed yet. if it's focused on Israel, my question is, to this point of where we are today, has Israel finished the transgression? Well, for us to say that, the first question we have to ask is, what's the transgression? Yeah? Okay, so what is the transgression? Well, it's actually a twofold thing as we compare Scripture with Scripture. Number one, the first part of that transgression is what Israel did to God back in the time of Moses, the time of Judges, and the kings. All that certainly was a transgression, yeah? It's the reason they ended up where they ended up. Does Israel, to this day, have a king in Israel? Does Israel, to this day, have all that was promised to them in Genesis? So then is the transgression finished? No. Okay, what's the second part of that transgression? Well, later in this passage, it talks about what the second part of that transgression is. What did Israel do to the king? They killed him. We are family. I got all my sisters and me. Listen, and my brothers. Listen. Listen. We have to understand this is not, whatever's going on in this passage is not done yet. Okay, number two, to make an end to sin. Has God made an end to sin? Do people still sin? Well, I guess that's not right. To make reconciliation for iniquity. It depends on how you want to look at it. We could say he made reconciliation for iniquity on the cross, and I can buy that, and I can flow with that, but I would be a little more leaning towards that is for the whole world. This specific passage is talking about Israel. Has reconciliation for iniquity been fully made with Israel? I'd say no. Again, we could argue about that, and it is what it is. To bring in everlasting righteousness. Has that happened? Nope. Has the vision been sealed up? Nope. Has the prophecy been sealed up? Nope. If it's not finished, then it's not sealed up. Am I correct? Has the most holy been anointed in the nation of Israel? No. So in other words, it's important to realize that the 70 weeks themselves are not complete. Everybody okay with that? Was that pretty plain? Was I clear on that? One of the qualifications for the completeness of this prophecy is that the transgression and sin is finished. And obviously we know that is true. Listen, Israel turned from God. They followed other gods, Judges to 2 Kings, which landed them in this predicament in the first place. Daniel 2:7 clearly states what is going to be the future of Israel. A very interesting, cool study within itself that, again, most people either don't understand or don't know how to put together, whereby they would be without a kingdom and without a king for many days. Do you recognize that the last king that sat on a throne in Israel was a guy by the name of Coniah in 586 BC? How long ago was that? 2,500 years ago. And look, for the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king. And they have. There's been no king since then. And so here's the question we have to come to the conclusion of. Well, that just must mean there's never going to be a king sitting on the throne of Israel anymore. And if that's the case, then can I just tell you something? Please leave this church. Please don't go back to a Bible-believing church. Why? Why would you say that? Because the Bible's wrong. If there's never going to be a king sitting on the throne of David again in the city of Israel, this Bible's wrong. But what I'm going to tell you is, if you make that decision, you're making a grave mistake. Because the king is coming. And he is going to sit on the throne of King David. It's going to happen. It just hasn't happened yet. Because we're living in a period of time called the church age. God's attention is not on Israel right now. It's on the church. And if you don't understand that, you're not going to prepare for the coming of the King. The prophecies of Israel and everything that goes along with that is undeniably amazing of what God has done to preserve that nation for 2,500 years. They're the only ones that have ever done it. No nation has ever lost their homeland and remained and identified themselves as a people. Nobody's ever done that. Only Israel has done that. It's an amazing thing. And as Bible said, that's exactly what was going to happen. Exactly what was going to happen. Time does not permit me to go to verses also in Hosea that talk about how long that was going to take place. 2 days. A day with the Lord is as 1,000 years. So 2,000. Oh, wow, that's interesting. I could go to John chapter 2 right now and talk about the wedding of Cana that happened after 3 days. Look, we could do this all day long. And we could just start going, time after time after time after time again, God just putting his stamp on things. He just puts his stamp on things. But the problem is, we don't teach prophecy anymore, so people are clueless to all of this. And because people are clueless to all this, they don't realize that the king's actually going to come. And they don't understand that why he's coming. They don't understand it. And they don't really care. And they're apathetic to it. And that's why church has become a place where it's all about me. Okay, to our own detriment. Because that's exactly where Israel fell. See, they made everything that God had given to them all about who? Them. And when Jesus came, he let them have it for it. Well, you don't think he's going to do the same for... You think that we're some special thing that he's not going to... We're his bride. Of all the people that should not be living like that, I would almost argue, potentially, he's going to hold us even more accountable to it. Now, thankfully, with all that I have in me, that accountability is not going to land me in hell. Thankfully. However, there is going to be accountability to it. And the judgment seat of Christ is going to separate the real, sold out, from the not so real and sold out. Doesn't mean you're not saved, but it does mean you're going to pay the penalty for it. You're going to. That's why things like this, in my humble opinion, are so vitally important. There's no king in Israel, and there will not be until the king returns. Therefore, by helping us understand this, we've got to get to the place where we recognize that something else is going on here. As we move now into verse 25, we now get the breakdown of what is taking place during these 70 weeks. The angel Gabriel makes it known what the trigger point is that will begin this prophetic announcement that he just made. Okay? So what is the reason for restoring and rebuilding Jerusalem? He tells us this in verse 25. He says to Daniel, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment," so there's going to be a commandment that's going to be given to do what? To restore and to build Jerusalem. So how are we going to restore Jerusalem? Well, we need to bring back the temple to restore all that we are supposed to be doing in that temple. And then while we're bringing back the temple and restoring that, well, on the heels of that, we need to rebuild Jerusalem because it's been destroyed. Got it? By the way, that's all conveniently put together for you in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. Ezra is all about rebuilding the temple, where Nehemiah is all about rebuilding the city of Jerusalem. Okay, we got that. We're good. I think we all got that. But why? Why was there going to be a commandment to restore the temple and build Jerusalem? What was coming? Messiah, the Prince, is coming. Messiah can't come without a temple. I wonder why the Jews are going to rebuild a temple. Messiah can't come without Israel being in control of Jerusalem. I wonder why Israel went back into the land in 1948, and then exactly just like the Bible said, 19 years later, they were going to regain Jerusalem. You want to know why? Because everything needs to be put in place because Messiah's coming. And what failed to happen in his first coming, nobody took, God wasn't taken by surprise for it. He knew exactly what was going to happen. But what failed to happen in the first coming is Israel did not call upon him as their Messiah. The king did not sit on the throne of David. But I can promise you this. He is coming again, and he's going to sit on that throne of David, and they're not going to fail a second time. The second time, the remnant's going to get it. They're going to understand who he is. And when he returns, oh, what a glorious day that's going to be. But with that being said, okay, so there shall be, it says here in verse 25, 7 weeks. And 60. Okay, we all got 3. Do we understand what a score is? Does everybody know? A score is 20. So 60 would be what? Okay, there we go. Okay, so we got 7 weeks it's going to take to restore the temple. 62 weeks it's going to take to rebuild the city. Is that what it says? Everybody good? Okay, so you got 7 and 62. Add that up for me. 69. Okay, let's stop there for a second because that's what we're dealing with in this passage. That's what's being told to us. And it tells us that all this is going to happen even in troublous times. Okay, this is why Ezra and going through Nehemiah, Robert gave us a good look into some of the problems Nehemiah was having. There were people coming up against him. They were definitely in troublous times. Were they under their own rule? No, they're under the rule of who? Media Persia. Were people coming up against Ezra? Well, we're not in the book of Ezra, but go read through Ezra and you're going to see he had his share of problems. Certainly we looked last week how much problems Nehemiah had. Even in troublous times, this is going to happen. But here's the problem, okay? Here's the problem. It took them longer than 7 weeks to rebuild the temple. And it took them longer than 62 weeks to rebuild the city of Jerusalem. So you know what the critic would say. Come on, man. You see, your Bible's messed up. It can't even get something simple like that right. And this is where I would say, well, maybe you should just give God the benefit of the doubt and let him teach you first before you go and saying that God messed up. Because I promise you, he never messes up. And maybe what you need to do is actually where you think there's a problem, where you think there's a potential contradiction, maybe what God's trying to do is go, hey, put the light bulbs on. Here's a place where I want you to pay attention. Because I'm about to show you something. And maybe you need to go figure it out and study to show thyself worthy and approved unto God, rightly dividing his word. How about that? But we see we're not teaching our people that. You want to know why we're not teaching our people that? Because all of our Bible translations today doesn't even use the word study. Hey, just do your best. Give it your best shot and just see where the chips may fall. Well, okay, you can do that, but I can promise you, if you just do your best will never be good enough. Never. I don't care how much you think it will be. It won't be. It won't be. So what is the reason for restoring and rebuilding Jerusalem? Messiah is coming. It was going to take 7 weeks to rebuild, we're being told here, the temple. And then it was going to take 62 for the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem. So, to break it down, the city and the walls of Jerusalem will be built, the temple will be built, and the Messiah will come in the span of 69 weeks. What's so fascinating about this passage is the fact that it predicts the very precise details of the first coming of Christ. To a T. And by the way, if you look at this book and you go, oh, it must have been written after all the events, it wasn't. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found a perfectly intact book of Daniel that they dated back long before the time of Christ. So whatever's going on right here, you better do something with it. Because there is architectural evidence. Archaeological evidence. Not architectural. That wouldn't make any sense. Archaeological evidence that there's something going on here and that this book was written long before the Messiah ever came. And when I say long before, we're talking 400 to 500 years. Okay? Interesting. The Jews understood who Messiah was. They understand that Messiah is both God and King. And listen, while Jesus was here, on several occasions in the New Testament, the Jews that were following Jesus attempted to make him the king. But you want to know what Jesus did? Do y'all remember? Right? But it's not my time. It's not, my hour is not yet. Right? John 6:15. John 6:15. There we go. When Jesus therefore perceived that they would come and take him by force to make him king, he departed and went into a mountain himself alone. He wouldn't let them do it. He wouldn't let them. Why? Why? I mean, isn't that what he came for? Wasn't he coming to set up the kingdom for Israel? Isn't that what he was offering? And he wouldn't let them do it. So what's going on here? What's up with that, man? What was Jesus doing? There you go, man. They're going to make him king. Let's roll. No. He wouldn't let them. All four Gospels, Matthew 21, Mark 11, Luke 19, John 12, record the account where on one day, Jesus actually arranges for it. Throughout his whole ministry, wouldn't let him do it, wouldn't let him do it, wouldn't let him do it. And then one day, he goes and he gets a donkey and he gets on the back of the donkey and he rides into Jerusalem. What's going on with that? Click. Is the next one Zechariah 9:9? Yep, there you go. Look. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding upon an ass and upon a colt, the foal of an ass. What did he do on that day? We call it the triumphal entry. He did exactly that. He rode in. And you all remember what they were doing? Hosanna! Hosanna! Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. That's what they were doing. He was riding. And the Pharisees were all sitting back going, dude, you better stop. Because they knew exactly what was going on. And it's just an interesting thing what happens in all this. You know what Jesus says to them? I can't. Because if I did, even the stones would cry out. You want to know why? Because precisely, exactly as Daniel predicted, exactly as the Passover feast, the first feast of the 7 feasts of the Lord predicted, he was riding in and fulfilling what? Oh, but let's not teach it. Let's not talk about that. It only proves who Jesus is, but let's not talk about it. It's not important. No, it's very important. He did it on the very day he was supposed to do it. Just like the book said he was going to do it. Exactly. There had to be a rebuilt temple. When the book was written, by secular reasons, was the temple rebuilt? No. They had no reason to think that it ever would be again. Was Jerusalem destroyed? No reason to think that Jerusalem was ever going to stand again. No reason. Yet, crucifixion wasn't even thought of yet. Yet, just like the book says, everything was falling into place on the exact precise times that it was supposed to fall into place. He comes in. He's proclaimed as king. They understood what they're proclaiming. They tell him to stop. He says even the stones would cry out. Prophecy was being fulfilled as God's will was being done. Nothing on earth or in heaven was going to stop it. The question might be asked, how could Jesus have held the Jews and the religious leaders accountable for not knowing the time of thy visitation? Because that's what he says to them in Luke 19, verses 40 through 44. He tells them, and I'm just going to drop right down to the bottom, that they should have known. They should have known that this day was coming. And he says, he's going to hold them accountable for not knowing that this day was coming because thou did not know the time of thy visitation. And let me just tell you something, my friends. He's going to hold us accountable too, because he's given us more than enough to tell us he's coming. The birth pangs are getting more. We have more sure word of prophecy than they had. And if he held them accountable, I promise you he's going to hold us accountable. I promise you he's going to. We've got to get this. This is that important. He rode in on that donkey on the 10th of Nisan. Time permits me to go back to the Passover feast over there in Exodus 12. But on the 10th of Nisan, you want to know what you're supposed to do? Take the perfect lamb and inspect it. And for the next 3 days, just like, we don't have time to talk about that prophecy. That's another one altogether. But on the next 3 days, just like Passover says, they inspected Jesus to see if he was the perfect Lamb of God. Unbeknownst to them, he was. And you want to know what you do on the 14th of Nisan? You cut it off. You kill it. And that's exactly what happened to Jesus on the 14th of Nisan. Fulfilling prophecy, just like God said was going to happen. Unbeknownst to an unknowing world, because they were ignorant. They didn't know. They weren't paying attention. It wasn't important enough to them. They became apathetic. It was all about them. Remember the question Daniel wanted answered. When will the nation of Israel once again stand as a kingdom? That was the question. What Gabriel does is fill in the details of what was going to take place. And in doing so, provides us with one of the most incredible prophecies found in the Bible. So as we saw previously, there would be a commandment that would be issued to go to rebuild the walls of Israel. When this commandment was issued, there would be a trigger to start the 70 weeks. The commandment was issued in Nisan. Now I want you to understand something about that. Nisan is the Jewish name for our April or May. Israel, the Bible, in case you didn't know this, does not go by our calendar. I know, big shocker. We like to think everything's about us, but it doesn't. We go by the Gregorian calendar, okay? So we have 365-day years with a leap year every 4, okay? Completely different than the Israel calendar. They go by 360-day years. So for them, the way it correlates with us, their month of Nisan fluctuates with us. Sometimes it falls around March. Sometimes it falls in the beginning of April. Anybody know what we do in the end of March, beginning of April? We just did it. We just celebrated Resurrection Sunday. Why? Why do we do it then? Well, that's because that's when Jesus historically died on the cross, which he did, by the way. Okay, so good. But something's going on here. Nehemiah, give me that. Yeah, there you go. So look at the Bible does this. You gotta love it. God don't play around. He gives us everything we need. This guy Artaxerxes, okay, he's the king at the time, and he rules over the kingdom from 465 BC to 424 BC, something like that. Don't hold me to that exactly. He started in 465. I think he ended in 424 BC. But it gives us this little tag here. And what does it say there? And it came to pass in the month, Nisan. Okay, well, we know something about that. Why do we need to know that? If you start looking at the other kings and stuff like that, oftentimes, if not most, he's never that precise about that. But yet in this instance, he is. Why? Because this is the commandment. This is where the commandment is issued to go rebuild what? That Daniel prophecy, what were the two things? You're going to go rebuild the temple, and you're going to go rebuild Israel. And when the commandment comes forth to rebuild, hey, Pay attention to that. Okay, well, when did that commandment happen? In the 20th year of Artaxerxes. Well, if he started his reign in 465, doesn't take much for us to figure this out. 465, we're heading down because we're in BC. That takes us to 445 BC. So, in Nisan 445 BC, the commandment was issued to Nehemiah to go build. Wow. God's pretty cool, man. He nailed that right for us. Okay, but what does that mean? Well, God also told us it was going to take 69 weeks for all this stuff to go down. Okay, well, if we go from Nisan 445 BC and we add 69 weeks to it, okay, which would be 483 days, as you look back in secular history, was the temple and the city of Jerusalem built in that time period? No. See, your God, he don't know what he's talking about. He can't get this right. Again, as I said, what that demands for us to do is to now let God do what he does. We come to an important piece to the puzzle that needs to be put together. The commandment to rebuild Jerusalem comes in the month of Nisan, 445 BC. History tells us that the walls of Jerusalem and the temple took a lot longer than that to build. So either God does not know what he's talking about, or there's something more to this that we need to uncover. Once again, we need to make sure we understand that the Bible is a Jewish book. So therefore, there are terms we can only understand by knowing how the Jews understood it. In this case, we want to take a look at a very important term. Weeks. Okay, what is up with this? It becomes obvious that it cannot be understood as 7 days. Because as already stated, the temple and the city of Jerusalem took longer than that. So either God's messed up and he doesn't know how to put together his own book, or something else is going on here. This is a good place to learn the lesson of how God defines his own book and the importance of studying to show ourselves worthy and to let God always provide the answers even when it doesn't make sense, because he does. If we go back to the book of Genesis, we come across this term week. By the way, the law of first mention kicks into place here. You need a King James Bible to do what I'm about to tell you to do here, okay? You ever want to understand what a word means, the best place to do is type that word in your Bible, go back to the first place it was mentioned, God will give you the definition of the word. Did I say all the time? Let me repeat that. All the time. He does it all the time. You want to understand what a word means biblically, just go find where he first used it, and you'll get the right definition of that word. So he does that here. If we go back to Genesis, we come across this term. The Bible will always, did I say always? Let me repeat that. The Bible will always interpret itself. Have I lost anybody? Are we good? Is everybody with me here? Because what's about to happen is going to blow. If some of you all know exactly what's. Some of you might be going, "Oh, come on, man, tell me what's going on here. This is cool," because it is cool. Watch this now. Watch while Jacob, Israel, he flees from his brother Esau after obtaining the firstborn blessing from his father Isaac, and he moves up north and lives among his mother's brethren and his uncle Laban. While there, a hot little chick, right, by the name of Rachel catches his eye, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to marry that girl right there," right? And so what he does is he goes to his uncle and he says, "Listen, I want her hand in marriage." And so what happens is, by the way, I highly, highly suggest you come on Thursday night, because I'm going to be talking about this that I'm telling you right now, the Jewish wedding scenario. Oh, you might want to pay attention to that, because it's cool. Robert, am I right? It's very cool. So you might want to come back, but just do know that in a Jewish wedding, a price had to be given before the father would allow the person to buy his daughter. That's just the way they did it, man. It's the way they reckon things. It is what it is. So what happens is, in this situation, Jacob agrees to serve Laban for Rachel 7 years. But then something interesting happens. On the day of the wedding, Jacob doesn't get Rachel, he gets the sister. And Jacob doesn't realize it because he's in the wedding tent, it's all dark, He's consummating the marriage, has no idea what's going on until he comes out and he goes, that's not the woman I wanted. What's going on here? And he go back to Laban and he said, hey, dude, you just did me wrong. And Laban says, no, I didn't do. That's the custom of our people. I didn't do you wrong. You want Rachel, you can have her. She's next in line. You just have to serve me for 7 more years. Okay, I'll do it. Now here's where the passage helps us. And Laban said, it must be not done so in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week. And so we'll say, oh, well, okay, all I got to do is work for this girl for 7 days? Yeah. Oh, the problem is 7 other years. So what we learn from this passage is when the word week is used, hey, be careful. It doesn't necessarily mean 7 days. It can mean 7 years. You see, now if we go back to our Daniel passage and we input that, okay, now we got something, because guess what? The temple was rebuilt and the city was finished in 483 years. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And remember, why? Who was coming? Messiah was coming. So now let's kind of look at all that and input it. Click me there, Peyton. Let me see what I got next. Okay, so look at. So the commandment to restore Jerusalem takes place in Nisan, right? Everybody, right? 445 BC is when the commandment was taking place. If we take 69 times 7, it's 483 years unto Messiah the King. If we go back into this passage real quick, what was going to happen after 483 years? Well, it tells us in verse 26 that the Messiah was going to be cut off, but not for himself. Was Messiah cut off and not for himself? Yes. He got nailed to that cross. He didn't do it for himself. He did it for the sins of the world. Okay, that's cool. We look at that, we go, that's cool. But now watch. Go ahead and click me there, Peyton. Okay, so the decree of Artaxerxes, based on, this is why I love secular. You want to throw secular history in this, man? Let's just roll. Okay, on secular history, they say that this decree of Artaxerxes happened on March 18th, 445 BC. Do you want to know what happens when you take 483 and you times it by 360 days, because that is the Jewish rendering? It's 173,880 days. Click it. Keep up with me, bro. Okay. Now, here's an interesting thing, because I've done it, and I implore you, do it. Start at March 18th, 445 BC, and count 173,880 days. Go, are you kidding me? That would take me it doesn't take as long as you think. Do it. And you want to know where you end up when you're done? April 10th, 32 AD. And you want to know what happened on April 10th, 32 AD? On the very day, Jesus was to announce himself as the king and rode in on that donkey. Just like Daniel said, he did. Now listen, I don't know where you are with all that, and I don't know what you want to do with that. But listen, if you just take a look at that and you just go, yeah, it's all coincidence, you're a fool, my friend. Don't be messing around. God nailed this, man. He knew exactly what he was doing. By the way, he did the exact same thing for the time of Israel's return into the land in 1948 and 1967. Different time, different subject. Oh my gosh, it's 1227. Look at that. But this is good, right? Amen. Do we like this? Yeah. I hope you do. I hope you do, because this is good stuff, man. Listen, exactly to the day. But see, here's the thing, right? What we have to do is we have to understand something. When you're looking at if you want to try to look at Bible prophecy, and if you want to try to correlate it, if you will, to our calendar to kind of get an understanding of things, you see, for the Jew, it wasn't April 10, 32 AD, because they don't do that. They're somewhere in the year 5,900 or something like that right now. They go by the rendering of when it all started with Adam, and they just keep going. They never stopped. We do it differently. So we're trying to take this information and put it into our calendar. That's why some of this is important. And yet God does it in such a way knowing how to do it. Okay, so what do? So click me there, Peyton. Let me see what's on the next slide. Give me one more. Right there. Okay, so if you take 173,880 days and you divide it by our calendar, what you come to is 476.38 years. To our rendering, okay? And so if you take 445 and you minus 476 from it, because remember, we're going 445 down, back up into from BC to AD, you come to 31. Okay, but here's the thing, and you need to understand this. When you go from BC to AD, it didn't go 2 BC, 1 BC, 0, 1, 2. It went from 2 BC, 1 BC to 1 AD. So whenever you go from BC to AD, you always have to lose a year. And when you do that, you come to 32 AD. No matter which way you slice this, God nailed it. He nailed it. I know people will say that Jesus died in 33 AD, and you can believe that all you want. I'm going to go by my Bible, and I'm just going to say, you know what? I think it was 32 AD. I think he nailed it right exactly what it was, and I'm going with it. I wasn't there. You weren't there. Let's just go with what the Bible says. And you know what's interesting? 0.38. That would put us how far into our months? It's almost like God done wrote this book. It's almost like he knows exactly what he's doing. And he does. Because you want to know what happened in Nisan? 483 years to the Jewish reckoning later, Jesus rode into that donkey, rode into the town on that donkey, presented himself as a king, and they killed him. Just like it said was going to happen. The very day that they said was going to happen. Amen? Daniel tells us that Messiah is going to be cut off, and clearly he was. But see, what we have to understand is, and what is important to understand about this passage is that, because, okay, when we look at that, we go, okay, well, Jesus was cut off after 69 weeks. So what's the very next thing we should be asking ourselves? Okay, cool. Man, that was so awesome. He nailed it right to the thing, 69 weeks. Okay, but Pastor, what about the 70th? What about the 70th? Well, we know now that this is years. So in 32 AD, when Jesus got cut off, if this was a continued thing, it would have ended in when? 39 AD. But we started, I asked you and I said, okay, who's this about? Who's this for? What happened? What's going on down the line here? Who's it about? About Israel. It's about Israel and the wrapping up of what's going to happen to Israel. And you want to know what happened? When Jesus got cut off, it was because Israel did what? What God did is he put a time stop on Israel. This passage, the 70th week, did not continue. God in his grace and mercy, and some of y'all were here when I taught through the book of Acts, and we looked at this. God, through his grace and mercy, gave Israel another shot. See, if you reject me, well, I'll forgive you. And Israel rejected him because he sent them who? And what did they do to John the Baptist? Well, surely they'll accept my son. And Jesus says, if you reject me or if you reject the Father, you'll be forgiven. Did they reject the Son? Then he said, however, if you reject the Holy Ghost, that's the one you don't want to reject. Why? Because it's the Holy Ghost that comes inside you and saves you, does the final act. Now, that's not to say that to reject or to accept the Holy Ghost means you accepted the Son. You follow what Jesus is doing there? He's not going that the Holy Ghost is more important than me. What he's trying to let us know is, except a man be born again and let that Holy Ghost move inside you, you cannot be saved. So he's saying, hey, if you reject the Father, better figure that out. Hey, if you reject the Son, hey, grace and mercy still there. Figure it out. But if you reject the Holy Ghost, you're in trouble. You know how many pastors I've seen preach that wrong? Wrong. The blasphemy of the Holy Ghost. Don't blaspheme. Okay, And you know what happens in the book of Acts? God gives them one more chance. And you want to know what happens in Acts chapter 7? Why do you always resist the Holy Ghost? Why? Stephen cries. And you want to know what they did? They stoned him. And you know what God did? He started the process of now instituting the church age where we are. Where we are right now. Is God done with the Jew? No. Not by a long shot. Nowhere even close. However, we're living in a period of time. The parenthesis, the interval, call it whatever you want. But one day, God, there's a trumpet that's going to blow, and God's going to call up His church. And then, guess what's going to happen? The 70th week of Daniel is going to begin. The final 7 years. I.e., insert the book of Revelation, chapter number 6 through chapter number 19. I.e., institute all that's going to happen in that time frame. This is where we get our 7-year tribulation from. The Bible calls it the tribulation, the great tribulation, the time of Jacob's trouble. Because who's it about? So I got a question. If it's about Israel, how can the church be involved in it? Oh, well, that must mean then what? The church ain't here. The church isn't here. Well, we just threw a whole bunch of more churches in trouble now. They don't know what to do with that. Do you see why prophecy is so very vitally important? Let me end this because it's time to go. It was time to go a while ago. Why is this so important? Why did I take the time to explain this? Because we are living in a day where people do not know why Jesus is returning. We are spending so much time trying to figure out and argue when that we've lost the purpose why, which is what I told you to begin with. When He returns does not really matter if we don't know the why. Okay? The devil has us all messed up. He knows what he's doing. Prophecy is the testimony of Jesus, Revelation 19:10, Peyton. It is what separates every religious group or book from the Bible. Prophecy proves this book comes from a divine source. Jesus in His book tells us the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. I don't know why we would even think for a minute that it is not important. It proves the divine. All the other stuff that we say about Him doesn't really matter if we don't really believe in Him. If we're just giving a mental assent to it. You see, but if bro, and I mean that with all respect to him, if he proves who he is, oh boy, that changes everything. If he said he was going to do something and he did it, can I just offer my thoughts on the matter? He's probably still going to do it. And we have a church today that is unprepared. They're unready. They don't know what's coming. If we can understand that this book is the only trusted source, then we will heed it. Every word of God is pure. It's a buckler to them that put their trust in Him. However, it's only a buckler to them that put their trust in Him. Real faith is shown by real living. Jesus is coming. He is bringing His wrath upon planet Earth. And He's going to destroy all that are against Him with a fiery vengeance. 2 Thessalonians 1, 7 through 10. A good place to start. He is going to. And when He does it, look at, and they that, here's an interesting thing. Read what He says here. In flaming fire, taking vengeance on all them that know not God and that don't believe in the gospel. Is that what that says? Words matter. Obey not the gospel of our Jesus Christ. It's not, hey, I believe Jesus died on the cross. Yeah, so good. So do the devils. Now what? No. You don't just believe on it, you obey it. You understand what it's teaching, because it's according to Scripture. And faith cometh by hearing. See, we're not teaching this to anybody today. People don't know this stuff. Oh, just bow your head, say a prayer, and continue living like how you want to live. No big deal. Jesus got you now. I don't know which Bible you're reading, but that ain't the Bible I'm reading. I don't know what Jesus you're putting your faith in, but that is not the faith and the trust that I'm putting in this book. It's just not right, guys. It's not. But look, he's coming to bring everlasting destruction. What's everlasting destruction? Well, that's the presence of the Lord. You're removed from him. It's a second death. It's the removal of your soul from his presence for all of eternity. And one day, that day, it's coming. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? Most of the world does not. They don't believe this. Most of those in the church today does not believe this. Yet, it's coming. What has been replaced is an apathetic, could care less attitude. As we teach our congregations how to live our best life now, but I can just promise you, you can teach somebody how to live your best life now all you want, but how is that going to matter on that day? I'm just asking a question. How is that going to matter on that day? And if we don't think that the very person who held the Jews accountable for what they did is not going to hold his bride accountable for what we did, we have an incredible ability to lie to ourselves. How we live our lives does determine our attitude and how much we believe this book. If I told you right now, if I said, listen, I'm almost done. I know it's 12:40. I hope this was a good message, and I hope you take it and you run with it, because you should. But listen, if I told you right now, everybody look up at me. If I told you right now emphatically, and I proved it emphatically, Jesus is coming in 24 hours. 24 hours from right now, he's coming. I'm curious, what would you do? Would you go home, throw up your feet on the couch? Man, finally, gosh, been a while. This is cool. He'll be here tomorrow. Awesome. All this will be over tomorrow, man. Amen. And just watch TV? Huh? Would you just go and relax and chill by the pool, and go play golf, go play baseball, and watch the show, and whatever it is we do? Would you do that? I'm just curious. I think we're enough of a known church about some stuff that we would go, oh, heck no. I'll tell you what I'd be doing. I'm going to tell my family about Jesus. I'm going to talk to anybody I can. I'm going to spend the next 24 hours. I'm not even going to go to bed. Forget that. I'm going to go at every door. I'm going to make sure I'm right with him. That is the way Paul taught it to us. We should always be in anticipation for that. You should be living like that every day. Because you know what? He could come in 24 hours. He could come in the next minute. And if we lose that, we will become apathetic. We will become what we've become. It's just what will happen. And I know that I get up on you guys, man, and I know I'm hard on you, but I'm only hard on you because I know what's coming. I know what's coming. I've read the book. I know what it says. I know what's coming. I believe this book with every ounce I have in me. And what I can tell you, folks, is the stuff that we worry about and the stuff that we care about and the stuff that we make important in our lives is worthless. It is. And one day, we're going to find out this book actually meant what it said. It actually did. And while we're too busy arguing about stuff that don't matter, doing stuff that don't matter, finding our own little reasons to lie to ourselves and everybody else around us, while we're lying to God, we're going to pay the price one day. We're going to. And I'm sorry if you think that I'm too hard on you on it. But you know what? Somewhere in this little thick thing that you have up here sitting at this pulpit actually does really care about each and every one of you and know what's coming. And you can get mad at me all you want, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. What you do with it is up to you. But you are not going to stand at that judgment seat of Christ and look at me and go, Pastor, why didn't you tell me? I did. Oh, I did. You just had everything else matter to you. Just wasn't enough for you to do any action about it, man. Whatever it was that you had in your life that was more important, you let that be more important. Well, okay. Do you want to go first or me? Okay, well, you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Because listen, I got my own problems that I have to deal with. I'm going to get behind somebody that's far more better of a Christian than I ever was. God already got it, man. God's already got me behind Paul. I know that's going down. Well, that's great, God. Let Paul go first, because I'm going to look like a complete, utter idiot when I go behind him. Or any other of those other guys that really got it, that really died for their faith. Well, we joke around and act like Christians, like we're doing something special. Listen, man, one of the most important messages I ever heard came from Pastor Trotter, and he preached on the judgment seat of Christ. And I'm just telling you, it's coming. It's coming. It's closer today than it was yesterday. And while we're sitting around here worrying about stuff that does not matter, all the devil's doing is distracting us. That's all he's doing. And we are so, can I be Italian about this for a minute? We're so dumb that we just fall right into it. We just fall right into it. We think we're this all-powerful Christians, man. Oh, look at me. Look how great. Look who I brought. Look what I did. And we can do that all we want, but at the end of the day, if you ain't living right, it don't matter anyways. Because listen, you didn't bring anybody anyways. God did. That's the way it works, man. But at the end of the day, if you didn't bring anybody, now what? We got to get to the place where we understand what is most important, because God proved to us who he is. He did it, no doubt about it. I ain't got time to bring us back to Peter, but if I did, go read the rest of verse 11 through 18. And you know what Peter says? When he talks about how in the last days people are going to be scoffing at his coming, do you know what he says after that? Brethren, now that you know, what manner of life should you be living? You know, you are not ignorant of this. You know. What manner of life should you be living? Well, like I said, what manner of life should you be living is like he was going to come in the next 24 hours. Live like that. And I promise you, you're going to have a good day on the judgment seat of Christ. You live like that, you'll have a good day at the judgment seat of Christ. In this Laodicean time we live in, we are so worried and so focused on the things that do not matter. And somehow, as we lie to ourselves and convince ourselves that they do, what matters is if the trumpet sounded right now, are you ready? All this other stuff's going to burn up. All the things we thought were important will not matter. And it's only then will we realize, oh, this book actually was serious about what it said. But the problem is, folks, there's not a darn thing you're going to be able to do about it then. You're about to pay the consequences. And whatever those consequences are. Because here's the thing I love about God. He gives us a choice. But choices always have consequences. It's just a reality. Christians need to start living like the bride who is preparing for the groom. And that's why I implore you to be here Thursday night. Because I'm going to give you a little insight on what God says about that. And I promise you it'll be good. I'm sorry I went over. I apologize for that. But I hope it was worth it. I hope it was good. And I hope that we're going to do something with it, man. Because we need to. We need to live like that. Amen? All right, Father, we come before you, Lord. We want to thank you for this day. Thank you, Lord, for your word. Thank you for who you are and what you are. Lord, I'm so grateful that you have given us undeniable evidence. Hebrews 11 tells us that we have evidence for our faith. And Lord, you gave so much evidence, it's beyond our ability to even comprehend. But the problem is we're just not teaching it to our congregations anymore. We're not giving people the chance to see just how serious you are about things. We're allowing and giving opportunity for our people to be apathetic to you. Lord, I pray that's not this church. With all that I have in me, I pray that's not this church. We don't have time to be apathetic. We don't have time for our opinions to matter on anything. The time is short. Your book has told us that we need to be ready. And Lord, you've given us all the tools to be ready. We need to learn how to be ready. We need to be ready. And we not just be hearers of the word, but we need to be doers. So that our faith can be seen and shown. So that when you come and you say, will the Son of Man find faith? He will have found faith at One Baptist Church, Jacksonville. So Lord, I pray that would be us. I pray that we would take this as it is meant to be. Your word is a buckler to all them that put trust in you. Your prophecies give us the very reasons to put our trust in you. And so, Lord, I pray that we would take that seriously, take that with all that we need to help change our lives and do the things that we need to do. We can't worry about what we did yesterday, but we certainly can worry about what we're about to do in the next few minutes. In Jesus' name I pray that. Amen. Love you all. Have a good day.